On today's show, it is that time of year, and that means NBA over-unders with Robby Kalland joining me for the first time this cycle. Plus, there is much more to come on this topic, but today, a little bit of Western Conference talk, and without any further delay, here we go.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1806 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Thursday evening into Friday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. You can start the season right now with a big return in the football space at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Also, I should tell you, as I always do at the top of the show, to make us your first listen each and every day, please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you happen to find your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can already see this person. I'm joined today by Robby Kalland. Robert, how are you?
I'm good. It's win total season, man.
It is win total season. We're back. I teased this the other day. I said, at some point we'll start these up. And I got, no lie, I got 2 DMs that were excited about over-under season. So if you're new, I won't do a full-on preamble here, but if you're new to the process, Robby comes on annually because he's the best to do all of the season win totals, basically. Of course, our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook are going to be driving the win total over-unders here. But, we're going to start out west and kind of ramp up. Obviously, it's a Hawks podcast. If there are opportunities to bring it back to the Hawks, I usually try to do that. But mostly, we're just talking about the league. And I'll promise you this, the last one we do from a divisional standpoint will be the Southeast because that's home sweet home. But, Robby, anything you want to share at the top, philosophy, or do you want to just dive right in? It's up to you.
Yeah. Just real quick again for people who have listened to these for years, they know how we do it. But we're gonna talk about every team. We will not have what we would call actual plays for every team, but we'll try to give an over and over. But we'll let you know, lean over, lean under. But when we really like something, we'll let you know.
We'll tell you.
Condo steamers, the whole bit. We'll bring it down. But and just to preface, in the West, especially this year, it's so jumbled, so tightly packed. We saw last year, 10 teams with like 11 teams with 45 wins or more, something insane like that. Because it was like 10, 11 teams with 45 wins. It's going to be, and the numbers reflect that. Pretty much every number in the West is between like 43.5 and 50. 51, 52, I think is the highest. So it's like, it's very condensed. I'll be honest, I think a lot of numbers are right. So we're not going to have a ton of like hard plays, but it is fun to talk about the West because it's such a fascinating conference top to bottom because the difference from 3 to 9 could be 3 games next year.
Yeah, just to back you up, last year, the number 1 seed was a tie between OKC and Denver at 57 wins, and the 10 seed was 46 wins. So it's 10 teams separated by 11 games. And if you want to get even crazier, number 4 through 10 was separated by 5 games in the Western Conference last year. So it was really, really tight, and we'll get into that, of course, as we get going here. But in general, just to appease the overlords, let's start with the good teams because it's good recording podcast YouTube policy to begin with more exciting teams. And in the Northwest Division, which is our charge on this podcast today, we will begin with actually the team that has the highest over-under in the entire Western Conference, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Currently, they're at 56.5 with some juice to the over at FanDuel. That's a pretty high number. Just for a little bit of background here, they were 57 games last year. This is basically the exact same differential, all that stuff. They were kind of a true talent 57-win team last year. They made some changes. Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein. They did lose Josh Giddey, old pal Mike Muscala, and the corpse of Gordon Hayward is no longer on this team as he was at the end of last season. But what do you make of the Thunder? Because there's a lot of – I don't know about you. All the stuff that I listen to, it feels like everyone's picking OKC number 1 in the West, and I get it, but it's almost like everybody's doing it.
It's hard not to. They were the 1 seed last year, and they got better. On paper, they are a better basketball team this year. I don't think there's any way to go about it and think any differently. I think you'd have to be pretty contrarian to say that this isn't going to be a better basketball team. Now, that doesn't always translate to more wins. As we know, I think the Kings are a great example of that last year. I don't think the Kings were any worse than they were the year they made the playoffs, and they won like 2 fewer games and missed the playoffs. It's those are the margins you're dealing with, especially in the West. And when you win 57 games a year ago, there is a ceiling that you tend to bump into around 61, 62 wins is about as high as most normal, really good teams can get. That said, I have an over here, which is kind of insane at 56.5. Like, it feels wrong. Anybody that's watching, we don't like going over on the top team. However, you swap in Caruso for Giddey, that's an upgrade. You add Hartenstein, and like that is a move that I think there's going to be a touch of an adjustment period, but not. I don't think it's going to have to be anything crazy, because for all the talk about like, oh, they're not going to be able to go 5 out, they're not going to be able to do this. It's like Hartenstein can still play in space. It's just it's free throw line and in, but they didn't have the vertical spacing that he's going to provide, because Chet is a guy that you can bump off a spot rolling. You can kind of physically move him down low. You can't do that with Hartenstein. And I think that's going to produce just as many good looks. And like, is there really any difference from having 5 out with Josh Giddey or 4 out with Isaiah Hartenstein at the rim? I don't think there is, in terms of how I think it puts more pressure on how defense have to approach you. And also, like, this is a team that's still young enough and still hungry enough to still want to chase that 1 seed and chase all the wins they can get. It's not like they made the finals last year and are going to have a different approach. I think they're just going to be all out, trying to win as many games, trying to stack wins. And I actually have an over here, and that's not even like a lean. That's like a take, which is weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a lean on this one, but we're on the same page. I think I would certainly not want to bet the under against this team for what you said. I mean, the talent level, it is what it, the only thing I could maybe come up with to forecast some regression is that they were super healthy last year. Sure. The young teams are generally healthier. Like that's kind of, if you do the math on that, it's kind of what it is. So yeah, they're better on paper than they were a year ago. They're a year older, and for some teams, like if you're talking about Milwaukee, you don't want to be a year older. But for your OKC, a year older is generally going to be better. Even with the quote that I always will attribute to you of growth is not linear, they don't have to have growth really.
They just got better. They got better around the growth. Like they, right. Like they could have a lot of, like you could have Jalen Williams and Shea be basically the same. I mean, the Shea's the same guy he was a year ago. He's the top 3 MVP guy. Like right. You don't need Shea to take a leap. If J-Dub stagnates, if Chet is basically what Chet was, like that's the crazy thing is like it feels like the floor is still, and I think this is the thing, when we talk about principles, when we do this, like the floor for this feels like a mid-50s team, barring like total catastrophe with health that we have no reason to project. Like there's no history of like this guy can't be on the floor. And I think they have the depth to overcome some of that. Like they're still really deep. Like they would go in 10 deep last year and they added 2 better players.
Yep.
So I think this team, now all their questions come in the playoffs. And I think they tried to address some of those, but you still have the questions like, can Jalen Williams be your number 2 offensive player in the playoffs? Like that is the thing he has to prove. But this is not a playoff discussion.
That's right.
So for me, it's still an over. I think this is the number 1 team in the West by a decently comfortable margin.
A good reminder there that this is a regular season discussion, and there are playoff discussions we could have, but that's mostly not what this is going to be. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is America's number 1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. And PrizePicks is also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or pick less, 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and watch the winnings roll in. Now you can win up to 100 times the money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is also the best way to get on the action in sports across most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure at PrizePicks. And when your picks hit, you get your money as fast as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also invented the flex play. It means you can still actually cash out if your lineup is not perfect. You can double the money even if one of your picks does not hit. You can spend football weekends at PrizePicks each and every fall and winter, and also know that basketball is coming very soon, and it's a great time to sign up with the folks at PrizePicks right now. Download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA when you get there. From there, you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That is code LOCKEDONNBA at PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed for you when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best place to find tickets, but there's nothing like checking out a live event, whether it's sports or theater or music or comedy. Gametime also has a new feature for you called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets even easier for you. They filter out the stuff that you don't need and only show you the incredible deals that you're actually looking for on great seats, so there's no need to waste any time searching through thousands of different tickets that you are not interested in. For example, there are awesome deals for the Hawks season opener at home on October 23rd against Brooklyn, including a pair of tickets right now for $27 each, including fees. That's an awesome deal, of course, and there's more of that happening at Gametime on a regular basis. Plus, my personal favorite feature at Gametime is that you can view those seats through the all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at the checkout screen at the very end of the process. Plus, you get a view from your seats in the app, panoramic style, before you buy them, so you know exactly what you're getting into when you get to the venue that you are looking for. And you're getting the lowest possible price guaranteed with the folks at Gametime. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app right now, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and again, one more time, that promo code is $20 off for your first purchase if you use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? It's game time. Let's go to the next team on the agenda, which I'm doing this in FanDuel projection order, and I'm going to Minnesota and not Denver, which is interesting. Minnesota is 52.5 wins projected at FanDuel right now. Last year was 56 wins, and that was not a fluke by the point differential. So that this is a little bit of a forecast of regression for the Wolves. They didn't do a ton in the offseason. They lose Kyle Anderson. They lose Monty Morris, who barely played for them. They bring in Rob Dillingham, the rookie lottery pick. Joe Ingles, who I still enjoy quite a bit, but is certainly a fringe guy at this point. They didn't really do much, let's just say. Yeah, he's not great. But this is interesting to me because they were the best defense in the league last year pretty comfortably, and were truly preposterous by the numbers when Rudy played. I have the numbers. I won't share them because it just gets too into the weeds, but they were ridiculous with Gobert on the court defensively, and it's very popular these days for obvious reasons. Interesting that they were projected 4 games lower than last year to me.
Yeah, I mean, this one is one where I lean over. I think the concern with the Wolves always is just on the health side, because Towns has not been the healthiest. If they miss, if Mike Conley misses time, that guard rotation gets real thin. That's
the one for me.
That's the fear, is they just don't have a backup guard. I think it's possible by February to have one that is not Rob Dillingham, but there's a lot kind of on the young man's shoulders if something happened to Mike Conley, and Mike is the adult in the room and kind of keeps them all in line but the reason I like the over here is we have seen historically, once a team figures out how to play really good defense around Rudy Gobert, they are going to be a top 3 defense in the league in the regular season. This is just what happens almost no matter what little personnel tweaks you make. Once you've built the system and you have the core and you know how you're doing it, you're just going to be an elite defense in the regular season. Again, regular season discussion. All the questions from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Playoffs. Deep in the playoffs. And so my thing is they're going to be probably the best defense in the league again next year. At worst, they'll be 3rd. Offensively, Ant's still there. He continues to add little things to his game, continues to get a little more efficient. If Towns is on the floor for 60, 65 games, this feels like an over. If Mike Conley probably needs to be 65 games as well. But
yeah,
they've typically done that. Mike doesn't play a style that lends itself. He's just old. That's the concern.
He's basically my age, which is a little bit troubling at this point if you're playing in the NBA. But no, I'm a longtime Conley guy, and you're right. I mean, you just nailed it. Last year, Cat played 62 games. contemplated like in the 70s, something like that. They were healthy. That's one of the arguments against them, is that they were probably healthier than you can expect them to be. But Rudy is almost always healthy. Ant seems to be a guy who's going to stay healthy.
He's just a freak. Like,
yeah. So it's weird. Like if this, I didn't look. I tried not to look a lot of these till I was prepping. Yeah. And I thought it might be higher, and I might take the under. And then then I was like, 52.5 lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
I don't want to play this, but I think if you made me choose, I would probably lean over as well, because the defense is just going to translate. I mean, night to night, I will make one comment that people in Atlanta won't like. I don't think that Ant is as good as people are talking about him being, but maybe he will be now. Does that make sense? I think to this point, he's a touch overrated for what he already is. Like I believe it. Like it's coming. I believe that.
Yep.
It's just like people are acting like he's already a top 10 player, and he kind of has never been a top 10 player. And maybe, but if you're on the over, that gives you a little bit more juice, because I think this might be, well, if I had to guess, this will be his best season so far.
I would agree. I think so, and I don't think that's necessarily like a slight or anything. Like I think
he's 22, 23 years old. Like
he's still developing. Like the thing for Ant has been, and last year was better with this. It's like, how consistently great can you be? Like that's the difference between being the 15th best player in the league and the 8th, right? Like it is, all those guys have pretty similar peaks, but it's like, can you shave off the valleys? And that's the thing he's got to do. And I think we saw it in the playoffs. Like there were some duds. Like they're just, it's to get to that next level. And like we saw it, you can take a guy like Jason Tatum as a good example of a guy who that's the steps that he has taken. I remember talking with him last year at All-Star, and he said that was the thing. It was like, I have to be the best player on the championship team. Like I have to be consistently great every night. And that's like impacting winning, even when certain things aren't going great for you. And that's Ant's next step. And he got better at that last year. And I think he continues that this year.
Yeah, he's gotten better every year, to his credit. And I think the defense has already come a long way. Yes. His efficiency's improved every year. It's just that I think this might be the breakout, which, so again, a little bit more fuel for the over, if you like that side, would be that I kind of see he's already had a breakout, but you know what I mean? The next like half tier jump that would be putting him in that discussion. All right, so we like the over there. Denver is interesting too. Denver is projected slightly below Minnesota. They're 51.5 at FanDuel right now, with actually some juice slightly to the under, which is interesting. People are pessimistic somewhere about the Nuggets. They won the same amount of games last year as the Thunder and one more game than the Wolves, but they are projected third, in part because they lose KCP.
Got worse.
They lose Justin Holiday, who wasn't great for them, but did play for them. Reggie Jackson. They bring in Russell Westbrook. Interesting. Dario Saric is on this team, who I've always liked, but is, a guy at this point. And really, they had a lot of good luck last year, health-wise. Like Jamal Murray was the only guy who missed real time for them, which is not out of the ordinary, other than Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is the guy who was like, he's healthy last year. You can't rely on that. Jokic is really healthy always. That helps. But this is another one like Minnesota, where I was like prepared to be like flogging the under, and I don't know if I can at 51.5, because Jokic is that good. That's kind of my baseline. It's like, do I want to bet against Jokic winning 52 games? Kind of not. I don't think I do.
Yeah, I have lean under on my list, and it's the same reason, because everything that you look at says like this team's considerably worse. Like,
they are definitely worse.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was, by certain metrics, the best on-ball defender in the league last year, and like you just take that away for nothing. Like Christian Brown is now that guy who is not that guy defensively.
They're going to be relying heavily on Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, and or Peyton Watson.
It's not great. It's not what you want.
It may be okay. Like they've done this before and it's worked out for them. And then you throw in, I mean, we don't have to do a whole Russ segment here, but Russ is going to play. Like there's no way they're going to bring in Russ and have him not play.
They're talking about he might close games.
That's a little scary to me at this point.
Already.
And look, I'm not an anti-Russ truther. I don't think he's like terrible necessarily, but
bad basketball player.
He's very limited at this point.
And the thing that I'm fascinated by is like the Nuggets are slow. they are a slow-paced team. Russell Westbrook is not slow-paced.
Well, maybe that's good. You can argue, maybe they actually need somebody to push the pace a little bit and not have them be so slow. But I tend to agree with you. It's not the greatest.
But the thing is it's like, yeah, and I'm fascinated to see how it works. Like maybe it works where you have a guy who can just get out and Jokic can just hit him on outlets. And like maybe they kind of give Russ that ability to push that way. But like it's all really interesting because like Russ is very much a guy who likes to crash the offensive glass. They don't really need a guard that does that because you've got Jokic and Aaron Gordon who are going to be down there on the glass, and it's like you don't really want him doing. It's an interesting fit, and we have seen historically Russ is not great at adapting roles when asked to do things he hasn't historically done. We'll see. Jokic apparently wanted Russ, and like.
That was out there. You know that's very well. Like
me to say that I know more about basketball than Nikola Jokic, so I'm gonna just maybe they can make it work.
And it was also we joked about that was like everyone in the league knew that was happening 2 weeks before it happened. Like that was like the most public, open secret in the world that they wanted Russ. They were going to get him, and I tend to not understand it that much. But maybe there's a plan, and maybe look. Russ is a certain age at this point. Maybe he's had the awakening that he
was better with the Clippers. He was better with the Clippers at like
lights
adapting
come
to
on.
the Lakers.
Yeah. So maybe he'll buy in a little bit more. He knows it's not his team.
Kind of what happened with Carmelo, where like Melo was like real bristled at the bench thing in OKC and Houston, and then he was out of the league for a year, and he was like, all right, like I'll be a 6-man, and like went to Portland and was good, and went to LA and was like solid, and like ended his career on a little more of a high note. Maybe we see that from Russ. But yeah, like I lean under, but like out of respect for what Jokic can do, they just might win 50. Again, like what's the floor for this team if Jokic is healthy? Like 47 wins, it feels like probably.
Yeah, they can't basically be worse than that. Yeah, I can't bet the under. The only reason I would lean under, honestly, is we haven't said the name yet. I am worried about Jamal Murray. We don't have to do the whole Jamal Murray thing, but I am a little worried.
I am too. He didn't look good in the Olympics, and that's when he probably should have been resting.
Yeah, and then they did the will they, won't they on the contract. Yeah. I get that you just pay the guy. I get it. I'm not saying it's crazy, but the timing was really strange. Like they were waiting, presumably, to see something, and every bit of data this summer was not good. And they still gave him the max. And it's like, all right, well, I don't know why you didn't just do that already. What were you waiting for? So
vibes are weird.
It's all a little funny. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football is here in a big way for an NFL fan. Start the season this year with a big return at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And when you happen to have a hunch in the middle of a game, check out a lot of different information sets from the latest stats to latest play-by-play and much more on the same page when you can place your bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. You also get started with a great offer from FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You should also know the FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use. They have all stuff that you're looking for across the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads to money lines, player props, future bets, live betting, same-game parlays, and so much more. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is also safe and secure for you to cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes WNBA and the NBA, of course, NFL, college football, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. Now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook and visit FanDuel.com right now to get started and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel. One more time, the place to visit is FanDuel.com to check out America's #1 sportsbook. All right, let's go to the bad teams. There are honestly 2 teams in the entire Western Conference that are projected to be dreadful, and they're both in the Northwest. One of them is Utah, so we'll start there. Their number at FanDuel is 29.5 with juice to the under. Last year they won 31 games, but I found this stat. They were 26-26, and they finished 5-25. So, yeah, they've gotten this last couple years in a row they've done this. Off-season wise, they didn't do a ton. They lose Chris Dunn. They lose THT. They bring in some rookies.
Justin was like sneaky good for them too.
He was. Cody Williams is there. First round pick. Isaiah Collier as well. Kyle Filipowski. They basically did nothing though, like of consequence for winning games this year. other than extending Lauri Markkanen and keeping him and not trading him. That's the thing that mattered. But like, it's gonna be a lot of like Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks, and they're probably going to sell again. By the way, they were somehow
your guy Keontae George.
Yeah, I'm not as high on him as some. Let's just say I'm baffled by. Did you know that they were dead last defense last year? I don't think I realized that till like 2 days ago. They were dead last defense. That's actually crazy.
Look at the roster.
I mean, it's bad, but like they have Walker Kessler. He's supposed to be a floor-raising defender.
It's not great.
They had Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn's a really good defender.
They did have Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn's a good defender.
They had some guys. Okay. Again, one more time. The number is 20. The number is 29.5. They won 31 last year, and there's no reason to think that they're better. Is there?
No, this is a firm play under.
Play under. Okay, so I had that circled as well as a play under at this number. I was hoping it was going to be high so I could play the under, and this one's actually in line. I'm going to play the under as well. This is a strong one for me because again, they have no incentive to try to win at the end of the season. None. And by the way, they've now shown the willingness to kind of shamefully not try to win. Like they're not shamelessly not trying to win.
They're going to accidentally be 500 at the All-Star break.
I don't believe so either. And honestly, people have kind of joked about this. I wonder if it might even be true. They might have part of the Lauri thing might have been like, "Hey, Lauri, we're going to pay you. Just know this first year we're not going to try." So that he might get kid gloves on any injury. He gets that kind of stuff. He's going to play obviously some, but this is one where I don't know if it's my best bet on the whole board, but it is relatively high on my list. I would certainly be pretty strongly under on the Jazz.
It's one of my two favorites in the West. It's one of my two favorite plays in the West.
A lot of bad young players. Like I still believe that they have some good players too, but they're going to. I mean, honestly,
Clarkson and Collins are both very available.
Oh, they're probably going to trade Clarkson. They're going to listen on Sexton. They're going to listen on Collins. I know, and trust me, Hawks fans, I understand Collins is overpaid. He is, but he's still like he's a useful basketball player. Walker Kessler's apparently available. Like they talked about trading him to various places. I think they're going to just try to build around their super young guys and Lauri, and that means they won't be very good because if they trade anybody else, they're not going to. I mean, they're already bad, and they're probably going to get worse during the season.
Yeah, because they're not making trades that bring in good players.
Unless they're on awful contract. It's the only way they could trade for someone who's like pretty good is if it's a really bad contract.
Yeah, and honestly, even then that'll be a buyout.
They
could trade for Russell Westbrook for a third time. And
they could be a DeAndre Hunter team. if the Hawks want to get desperate, they could do that. But anyway, anything else to add? I don't really have much to add other than just like
they're going to be a bad basketball team, and they're going to want to.
The thesis of them being bad, like young guys are not good generally, and even the guys that I like on their roster project to still be probably pretty bad. Like I know we joked about Keontae George. I think he's going to be probably pretty good.
Sure.
Right now, he's probably not very good. Taylor Hendricks, same thing. They're probably going to play Cody Williams. They're going to play the rookies. They're all going to be bad. Yep. I don't. And honest, as good as Lauri is your number one option. Isn't going to win you games.
No.
It's going to keep you afloat to like not be embarrassing. But Lauri Markkanen is really good. He's not a number one option on a good team.
Wave the white flag 2025 flag with 2 G's.
Oh, and if there was ever a fan base that would love to have Cooper Flag,
come on,
Salt Lake City, baby. Let's move on quickly from that. All right, that's 4 of the 5 teams in the Northwest Division. The last one is Sean Hyken's Portland Trailblazers. Hi, Sean. They won 22.5. Sorry, they won 21 games last year. The number this year is 22.5. Juice to the under. Like the Jazz, they finished 2-15 last year, and they are not afraid of shutting it down. They did more in the offseason. I will say they added Denny Avdia in an interesting trade, and he's a good player. They drafted Donovan Clingan. Donovan Clingan is, of all rookies, might be the best to help you now, but also he's at center with 2 other guys. They still have DeAndre Ayton and Rob Williams on this team. It's a little bit strange. They lose Brogdon, who's like a floor-raising decent player, but they couldn't score last year, which is interesting, which is not what you would think for a team that has this build around the perimeter offensive players.
Didn't help that Simons missed like half the year, which is hurtful.
And Sharp was not quite there yet, and Scoot was bad. So That's tough. But yeah, I mean, this number, I'm actually surprised this is 7 wins less than the Jazz, is my first take.
I would agree. I was like, my first thought was like under, and I still have lean under, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't like that.
Agreed on both counts.
I kind of want to flip flop here from what I did with Sam.
And that's fine.
He kind of talked me into it. Like I stuck with it when I did this with Sam. But
if you go over, I believe is like even money at FanDuel right now. A little
make
little
every
plus,
moment more.
Little plus in front of that number right now. If you go over,
I do love a little even odds. That does make every moment more. Yeah, I mean, look, like I definitely would not lay juice to the under. That is for sure.
Yeah, it's for me. It's a no play either way. I wouldn't play this. I just
like I don't know what they're gonna, because the thing that when I talked about it with Sam, like it was interesting because he brought up that will they want to completely tank again? They've done that for like 4 straight years.
It's
and
probably
like how long is the leash to do it? Can you still sell like, hey, Cooper Flags out there? Is that enough to get buy-in, or will it be like just play it out? Like they already a 25-win team at best, but like
right. It also depends on, for me, it depends on especially what Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe look like.
Like if
that's the whole thing.
Better than like you just play it out.
It's a lot easier to not like intentionally lean in if your number 2 overall pick from last year looks like that. And for last year, he got better as the season went along. It was not a great year for Scoot, obviously. And they love Sharpe still, from what I hear. They're still way in on Shaedon Sharpe. I'm less in, but I believe it. Like, he's a talented player. So, yeah, I mean, they have Jeremy Grant. That's the one where it's like, do they finally trade Jeremy Grant?
Do they trade Ayton? Is there anybody that would trade for Ayton? Can they trade
have
Rob
to
Williams?
At least try? Like I said, they have to at least try to trade one of the 2 centers, if not both of them. But if they try to keep Ayton, Rob Williams, and Klingon all year long, I'm going to pull my hair out on behalf of Mike Schmitz. Come on, Mike. Get one of those guys out of there.
Lock it up,
for goodness sake. No, I'm interested in Portland. I really am. I think I would, if you made me pick it, I would pick under just out of default, because I feel like every bad team, if I don't have a feel, I'm going to lean under, because a lot of these teams might just punt at the end. Like last year, they punted. They were 2-15 down the stretch. That was on purpose. Yeah. I think if they if you promised me they would try all year long, I would take the over.
I agree. Yeah, I have lean under on the card. I think this is probably one of my least favorite things on the entire board. Like it seems like the most right number to me of just about anything. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's an appropriate number. Well done, FanDuel. You've done it again. And yeah, I'm intrigued. I like Denny too. Denny's a
good player.
Good. It was a weird trade all around. I understand why they did it. They got a lot of draft capital. I get it, but he's a good player. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Portland is doing overall. I don't mean that as a negative. I just don't understand the plan right now for Portland.
I mean, I guess if you're just like, hey, we can get this guy who's pretty good for not a lot.
He's still young. I get it. Like he's on a good contract.
23 or whatever, like 24. Like.
But their roster right now, and I promise we'll stop. Their roster is just bizarre. Between having Grant, trading for Denny, and having all 3 of these centers, I just don't.
And the guards, like they've still got a bunch of guards that don't really fit together.
Yeah, Sharpe. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that Scoot, Simons, and Sharpe are not all going to be there long term. I don't see that happening.
I will say, because here's the other thing: like, if somebody came calling about Simons, if he got off to like a kind of like hot start,
I would love somebody big time,
because his deal's not bad. He's like 25 million a year.
I think he's actually.
I could see somebody calling for him, and if you're gonna build, I don't know if he's the guy they're doing it around.
He's out of sight, out of mind, because he's been on the bad Portland team. He's not the kind of player that I like. Like, I don't love the small combo guard scorer types, but he's actually a pretty good version of this. I think he's a good player. But I do agree with you. Like, I think if you're building around Scoot in general, if they are sold on Scoot still, Scoot and Simons don't really make sense to me. So we could sign off there on the Southwest. All right. The Northwest. Robby, let's just wrap it up. We're going to do more of these, but where can folks find all of your musings? I believe Dime on Up Rocks is still the best place, but you can.
That is correct. Where to find you can read my stuff over on Dime, Up Rock Sports. You can follow me at RKalland on Twitter, And you can listen to me on the Puntcast.
It is firmly Puntcast season. I'll tell you that right now. And this one's going up. This one's going up as we're recording it on Thursday. So there's a fresh Puntcast if you're listening to this on Friday.
There is a fresh Puntcast
in advance of Saturday's college football slate. So
it'd be quite the one to jump in on. Yeah.
No, why not? I mean, they're all quite whatever they are to jump in on. There's no easy place to jump in.
Yeah. Wherever you listen to Locked On Hawks, you can
find the Puntcast. All right. Thank you, Robbie. As for everybody else, please stay tuned. We'll have more coming up into the weekend and then into next week because Media Day is Monday. Media Day is Monday. The season is basically here at this point in time. So subscribe, tell your friends. We'll see you all next time.